I think they all become the biggest game of the season. But
Sure.
literally, with the way Kentucky's not ranked, at least as we sit here today, there are 6 SEC games left. 5 of them are against top 20 teams. We'll see if that holds firm when we actually play them. This is the one that is not ranked at all.
This is the one that you feel like is the easier one to get. Again, if you're polling most people, you're talking about some power rankings yesterday, most people would probably say Kentucky is the worst team in the SEC based on what we've seen through 4 weeks of play so far. They've only played 3 games, but still. Doesn't mean it's a guarantee. But this is your best opportunity to get yourself back in the win column before, again, you take on all those ranked teams to close out the year.
And I think yesterday we brought it up, and I kind of said it on air, and then as I went through it the rest of the day and even this morning, what you just said, I think, is what we think, but we don't know it to be true.
Sure.
We are basing Kentucky off of last year's Kentucky. They're a mystery. They've beaten Toledo, and that really wasn't a visually pleasing game.
It was ugly.
They were competitive with Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
They were competitive, and then they blow out Eastern Michigan, and also they come in here with a brand new quarterback. So Kentucky's a mystery, and I had to do a show out of Memphis this morning, and one of the questions I got asked is, through 4 weeks, what do you think about the SEC? Like, is it stronger? Is it more, is it tough? Where do you put the league this year? Mm-hmm. And it circles back to what I thought about Kentucky. And I thought, normally you have, and I don't know if we're here yet to make this assumption, but I'll ask you because this is also how I'm looking at Kentucky. Normally you got your upper tier, right? Mm-hmm. You got your Georgia, your Texas, your Alabama. You got 3 or 4 that are up there each and every year. Maybe somebody jumps in there a little bit. Mississippi last year was supposed to jump in there. Then you got about your middle tier, which really takes you all the way down from about 5 to 14.
Sure.
Which is, you're like, all right, that's the middle tier. That's what's supposed to make the SEC so strong, is that middle tier. And then right behind them, you've got a Mississippi State the last few years who's been brutal.
Yeah.
Typically, it's Vanderbilt down there. Kentucky was down there last year. I don't know if there's one of those this year, and unfortunately, we're sitting in the city where it might be that team.
Well, and I want to say Carolina's the only one that's played 2 actual conference games through 4 weeks, so they're the only one that's been tested by multiple teams within the conference, and obviously it hasn't gone well, but, and we know teams obviously change as the season goes along, and, really the only quality opponent Texas played was Ohio State, and didn't look great in that game. Arch Manning struggled, and they've been blowing everybody out in the past couple of weeks. So it's like, okay, has Texas gotten better, or is it just the competition, that they're playing? Alabama looked awful in week number 1 against Florida State. They've been blowing teams out since then, including a very bad Wisconsin team, but that doesn't really tell us anything. So how good are they? Georgia, again, they looked, kind of sluggish against Austin Peay, and then went on the road and won at Tennessee in crazy fashion. So, okay, they look like their normal self, but again, we don't have enough sample size of really anybody in the SEC to have a true opinion on what they are, which I'm glad conference play for most teams is starting this weekend, where now we kind of get a better idea of what they are as we get into the month of October, and then you start playing conference games every single week.
Mississippi's your other school that's played 2, Kentucky, obviously, and Arkansas as well. So they and the Gamecocks with the 2 conference games. But we'll talk a lot about Kentucky today, start to really analyze, break them down, get back into what Shane Beamer had to say yesterday as he looked ahead to Kentucky. One other question I'll throw out to you that we'll get into it. Is this game more about what Kentucky does or more about what South Carolina needs to do? Because, you go into some games, you're like, well, Kentucky runs, but we got to stop that. Well, or is this more about South Carolina saying we got to play the brand of football that we want to play and we win this game, as opposed to, well, Kentucky's really good at this, we need to stop that, and we got a chance?
Yeah, and my dive in Kentucky so far this week, nothing stood out to me as like, oh, my God, this is something that they're phenomenal at that's going to give you a lot of problems. It's like, if you can go out there and do your job, play the type of football we know you can play, and fix the mistakes from the past 2 weeks, you should be able to win this game. Because, again, with Vanderbilt, we talked about, the funky offense and how tricky that is to stop. They held on the ball for a long time. Last week, it was the outside zone runs and a running back that seemingly seemingly covered in butter that you can't tackle, and that obviously ended up being a problem.
Don't call him butter. Butter means he ain't slippery. He he just runs over you.
Yeah, that's probably a better way to put it there. So you obviously saw those struggles happen, and I don't quite see the same things out of Kentucky heading into this weekend. So I do think it's more about, okay, can Carolina not hurt themselves this weekend as opposed to Kentucky coming in here and doing something special against them?
We'll talk a lot about that and get you ready for that. Then we'll also get into some big picture college football as we get set for the weekend. There's going to be this conceivably is it. This is the best weekend of college football. If you look at it, who knows how everything else plays out over the next few weeks and what matchup, we know the matchups, but we see who gets really good and whatnot. But on paper, this is the weekend of college football. Oregon, Penn State, you got going. Alabama, Georgia. You got whatever's occurring with Ole Miss and LSU and Lane Kiffin's daughter. It is a phenomenal weekend of college football.
It's almost one of those things. And look, we love night games at Williams-Rice Stadium, but I looked at the schedule this weekend.
You wish you could switch the bye week?
Man, either have the bye week or this game be a nooner against Kentucky so you can be home to watch the big matchups coming up later on that night, because you're going to be at Willie B while Georgia and Alabama and while Oregon and Penn State are happening. It'll be the end of Ole Miss and LSU, so you'll be at the Carolina game while all these other things are happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's even some of what I'd say the secondary games. Count me in for Southern Cal, Illinois at noon.
Yep.
Count me in for Notre Dame, Arkansas at noon. Shoot, count me in on Friday night. Is Florida State looking past Virginia to Miami next week? Tony Elliott with a big opportunity up there in Charlottesville. And then at 9 o'clock, if you get into this kind of thing, I do TCU and Arizona State. TCU's doing what they do, and Arizona State is still trying to show that they are bouncing back. So a great weekend. Should leave, though, all coaches employed after next week, right?
Well, that's the question for me today is you're 2 for 2 this week when it comes to breaking news of coaches, whether it be Bruce Pearl on Monday or Mike Gundy yesterday. So my question is, do we get another coach fired/retiring today?
We shouldn't.
Keep the streak going?
We shouldn't. And it's funny because now what you did is you expanded that out. And for people that don't know, and tomorrow, by the way, again, we will have Lamont Paris on with us at 2 o'clock tomorrow. College basketball, the preseason practice got underway. We make such a big deal about football. Oh, football's here. Here's the first day of practice. They're in pads.
Sure.
Basketball got underway yesterday, and I saw Lamont Paris. We're going to joke with him tomorrow. Did you see
I did.
his Twitter?
Yeah.
Where he drills the three. Have to ask him, was that a first take?
How many takes did that take?
Because when you get older, and this is a credit to Lamont Paris, but when you get older, shooting a three fully dressed, in kind of your coaches, it's not the same as just being out there in a tank top and basketball shorts.
Sure.
And he swished it with no problem, but basketball got going yesterday. So it goes back to what you mentioned about Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl played the game.
Yep.
Wanted his son to coach.
Mm-hmm.
He played the game and said, hey, day before practice, I'm out of here. You don't have time for a coaching search. Here's the next in line. His name's Stephen Pearl.
Yeah, and you talk about a promotion for a guy that I haven't checked the Auburn message boards. I don't know if they feel like he deserves that or not. He certainly doesn't have any head coaching experience, and now you're taking over one of the best programs in the SEC. So we'll see how that goes as Bruce Pearl prepares to run for Senate, I guess.
Whatever Bruce is going to do, and yes, no, Stephen Pearl, 38 years of age. If I'm an Auburn fan, basically, I'd be like, well, all right, thank you for all you did, Bruce. We'll deal with Steven for about 3 years and go from there.
It's one of those things where and today's obviously so different with the transfer report. It's like, okay, does he have success right out of the gate because his father's fingerprints are still all over the program? You still have his players, and then 2-3 years down the line, it just kind of tanks because now it's truly his operation and he doesn't know what he's doing?
I don't know. And here's why. Again, Bruce Pearl, a slick one here. And let me be clear.
He's preparing to be a politician.
I like Bruce Pearl. I know Bruce Pearl. I've been around Bruce Pearl. I've had dinner with Bruce. I like Bruce Pearl. I'm a Bruce Pearl fan. I think he knew what he was doing.
Sure.
Because his players, obviously the window opens for 30 days. Those players weren't leaving.
Yeah.
They're not leaving now.
No, where are you going to go?
They've got a squad.
Yeah.
They've got an absolute squad. He left him a squad. They're going to win games. And then Auburn itself, football, baseball, basketball, has never been afraid to play in the gray area when it comes to recruiting.
Right.
They'll continue to play in the gray
Well,
area.
and I'm sure all those guys' NIL deals are already good and ready to go. So, yeah, there's no reason for those guys to leave right now. And, if this year ends up being a disaster, then that's a different story. But, yeah, he's left him the keys to the Ferrari, so to speak.
Yeah.
So just don't drive it off a cliff.
So, and then obviously yesterday, Mike Gundy, and now we get a little bit of differing opinion on how that went down. Saw a report last night that essentially they offered Mike Gundy to retire and coach out the remainder of the season. And then I believe there was another report that came out that said the AD said, no, we didn't do that. No, we just needed to make a change.
And this is where it gets really messy because now you have conflicting reports. And if I'm Mike Gundy, do I want to coach the next 9 weeks knowing they're going to fire me, or I'd rather get paid, like $15 million in the next 30 days?
We'll come back to this because here's the question. He wants to coach again. You saw his brother, Cale Gundy, yesterday steps out and says, yeah, he wants to coach, and I'm going with him. Mike Gundy's run successful programs, and there's going to be more programs that open up. Does Mike Gundy call up Dan Mullen and be like, how'd you get that UNLV job?
Yeah.
That looks like something fun for me, a non-Power 4 job where maybe a little less stress and a little less have to deal with the NIL and the transfer. I lose transfer portal guys, but we'll see. We'll talk about that. How much does Mike Gundy? 58.
Yeah.
He's a man. He's 58.
Yeah. That was almost on the anniversary of that rant, by the way. Yeah, about one day
after. Yeah. So we'll get into a lot to do. Captain Dave is back, Tyler Head, myself. We got a lot to get into. We'll circle back and get back into this South Carolina-Kentucky game and talk about a little bit Shane Beamer yesterday. He understands the fandanger. We'll talk about that. You're listening to Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain David Adair. It is the Halftime Show.
And I get it. There's a lot of people outside this building that aren't happy with me and aren't happy with our 2-2 record, and I don't blame them, but you get to come back into Williams-Brice Stadium on Saturday night and be a part of the greatest environment in all of college football. So that's what our focus is on and looking forward to, and hard at work on that.
Are we not happy with Shane Beamer, or are we just disappointed? Not how to. When you have kids, I feel like you understand the emotions better of like not happy, angry, upset, disappointed. I feel like you understand those better. Like I don't think we are not happy with him, but we're a little disappointed in what we've seen through 4 games.
Well, the expectations we talked about yesterday were pretty darn high, the highest they've been in a very long time. Certainly for a Beamer-era team going into a year, coming off what last year was, what you returned, at quarterback and Dylan Stewart and all that, coming back. And, yeah, you replaced a lot of talent from a year ago, but, we still read into the hype and, the preseason projections and playoffs and Heisman and all that kind of stuff. And nobody foresaw this team being 2-2, looking as dismal on offense as they have been through the first 4 weeks of the season, looking ahead to what you have left coming up after the bye week and not having the highest optimism for that. Like, I don't blame people for being down, but, yeah, I do think it's more disappointment because we expected more at this point.
Yeah, so the biggest thing obviously is offense. People, I think, understood and are willing to give a little bit of a break on defense, Clayton White. And again, as we said yesterday, to me, a little bit of silver lining. You always try to take some silver lining away from a game, even in something that really, really is depressing. But the defense bowed up. And the defense on Saturday night gave them opportunities to win. Did they tackle well? No. Are they tackling well this season as a whole? Was it a one-game thing? No. South Carolina's not tackling well. But by and large, that defense, again, bowed up when it had to, kept Missouri out of the end zone, made some plays. Gerald Kilgore had a fantastic interception. There was plays that were made by that defense. They didn't make enough of them. And then it seemed like the offense, when the offense fell on its nose in the fourth quarter, the defense finally broke.
Yeah.
And that's understandable. Missouri finally broke them and got the touchdowns, got the field goal, and knocked them out of the ball game. But offensively, this is a shocker. And, whether it's Shane Beamer's fault because he's the head coach and the buck stops there, or it's that of Mike Shula, that's where I see the fan anger because, Tyler, I forget, how long you've been here for 3 years?
3 years. Yeah, 3 years.
Offensive coordinators around here have driven people crazy for now 10 years.
Yeah.
And people, and I get it why people are like, why don't we get to have just a competent offense that can go out and keep us in a football game?
Yeah, and with the Beamer era specifically, that came in right at the end of the Marcus Satterfield saga and all that kind of stuff. Who's calling the plays against Tennessee and all that drama. And Dow Loggins wasn't a wow hire, and there was a lot of criticism to when he came in, and Beamer had his famous rant on whoever wrote that article about, what he'd accomplished in the NFL and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think anybody, when Dow Loggins took the Appalachian State job at the end of last year, nobody was going, oh my God, I can't believe we lost Dow Loggins. I think a lot of people were like, oh, he got a head coaching job. Interesting. I think people have more of an appreciation for him now, considering where things are at with Mike Shula. But there's a lot of programs. And I was talking about this with Terry a little bit earlier where, look at like Iowa, right? We always joke about the Iowa offense being stuck in 1940. No matter who they bring in as an offensive coordinator, no matter who they bring in as quarterback, this Gronowski guy was lighting it up at South Dakota State a year ago, and now he looks like every other Iowa quarterback through the first couple weeks of the season. And it comes to a point where you have to kind of look at the structure of the program itself, saying, hey, no matter who you bring in to call plays, it's going to look like this to some degree because this is what the head coach, the program wants it to be.
So my question on offense, and this is, again, I think where we talk about fan disgruntlement, what are you trying to be? And to me, Shane, I think Shane Beamer has explained it even more clearly, or maybe I've just finally understood it more clearly this week or the last 2 weeks than I ever have. He really wants to be run first.
Sure.
He truly wants to be run first with a passing game, with play action passing mixed in. The question is South Carolina able to run a system like that? Can you recruit to a system like that at this university and be able to do it? Because I think a lot of people, myself included, are enamored with that true spread them out zone read that we saw Connor Shaw have so much success with under G.A. Mangus, Sean Elliott, and Steve Spurrier.
Yeah, certainly so. And again, if you're going to be able to run the ball that way, you got to have capable running backs that can do that within your offense. And again, it's been kind of a mixed bag in the Beamer era in terms of what you've had in the backfield. Last year, you hit it really well with Rocket Sanders, who's a very capable running back and obviously did a lot of good things for you. And the jury's still out on what exactly Rasul Faison's been. He showed some promise in the Vanderbilt game where he got the majority of the carries, but this past weekend, pretty much nothing. And then you were back to rotating between him, Oscar Attaway, and Matthew Fuller even got in there as well. So you can have an idea, but you also have to have the personnel to match what you're trying to do. And again, for whatever reason, it just hasn't. We haven't put together a full perfect season of that in the Beamer era.
No, and look, one other thing I'll say, and I don't really have an explanation for this, but it seems to fit now for a 5-year sample size. Well, we know this. South Carolina gets stronger as the year goes on.
Yeah.
Whatever it is with preseason camp and how he does things, South Carolina tends to seem a little tentative early on at the start of the season. I go back to even like the Eastern Illinois game where South Carolina wins, and if you just look at the score, you're like, whew, blew them out. But it took a late touchdown run. There was some Beamer ball involved in that. And then Jordan Birch, if we remember that name, I think it was an interception, I believe it was, not a fumble, but he ran it back for a touchdown. I think it was Zaquandre White had a long touchdown run late in that ball game. So you looked up and you saw the score and you went, pretty good. But even in that game,
Eastern Illinois was like the worst FCS team at the time too. It didn't help.
Yeah, you had them. You even go back, obviously last year, Old Dominion is another one. Georgia State is a team that South Carolina didn't really push around. So with all that in mind, and then you can go through a few more games, South Carolina has typically under Beamer, in my opinion, physically gotten off to a slow start. And you look at it, Shane Beamer is actually kind of a weird statistic. Some of this has to do with Georgia being number one. But Shane Beamer's 0-5 in his third game of the season. There's a couple losses to Georgia, throw in one to LSU, and now you got the Vanderbilt game as well. But do we see them? Is this week the start of them starting of that line turning? And the other question will be, who do they go with up there?
Yeah, I don't know. That's the question. And again, it is an interesting conundrum of why these teams get better as the season goes along. And, yeah, you'd like to be playing your best football by the end of the year, but especially in a year like this one where your schedule is not normally as loaded with as many SEC teams in your first 5 games. You got to get out of the gate strong, and unfortunately, they haven't done that through their first 2 games, and you can tread water a little bit by beating Kentucky. But again, your toughest slate coming up here after the bye week, and you're going to have to be playing your best football there to have a chance against a lot of these teams.
So, how do you feel? Are you angry? Are you just disappointed? Just kind of, like, all right, I expected more. But I'm not angry. Look, Shane Beamer's done some really, really good things here at the university. I don't know if anger is the right emotion to have. Disappointment, totally understandable. And then you asked the question, though, going into this weekend, what is the value in potentially beating Kentucky this weekend?
Just making yourself feel good. Knowing that you went out there and did your job. I know Preston's talked about this before where, it doesn't matter if you're playing Alabama, if you're playing an FCS team. If you go out there and do your job on the field, you come away feeling good because you know you did what you were supposed to do. So beating a team like Kentucky, it's not the flashiest win, but it at least puts you back in the category of winning, which you haven't done in 3 weeks now.
803-404-6100. We'll come back. We'll get into last night's permanent opponents, Georgia, Kentucky, Florida. What do you think, along with the rest of the 2026-2027 schedule, really all the way out through 2029? You're listening to Tyler Head, Captain David Dare, Bill Gunner. It is the Halftime Show.
Tyred here for our friends over at Tilly's Warehouse, the first wine and spirits store in 5 Points in 20 years. They've got everything you can need when you're talking about your beverage selections, the largest and best selections at that. They're located right behind the Salty Nut Cafe over there on Green Street. And again, you can go in there and get things like High Noons and Sun Surfers. You can buy them by the case. They got ready-to-drink things right by the cash register as well. They also have a Class B license, so they can sell those bars down there in 5 Points if y'all are low on your stock. Mention that you heard this ad, by the way, on 107.5 The Game. You can get 10% off any wine selection as well. Stay connected with them on Instagram and Facebook, or visit their website at TillysWarehouse.com for more information and discover why Tilly's is your new must-visit spot over in 5 Points.
.34 on a Wednesday, hump day. Hope you are rolling right along, maybe enjoying a nice lunch, maybe sitting outside on a little more than a usual warm afternoon here as we are, what are we now in? I forgot. Did we do fall started Monday or yesterday?
Monday, I believe. So we're 2-3 days into fall. Summer hangs around until sometimes early October.
Yeah, it's hanging around, and I got a feeling if you're going to – I didn't look at the weather. I haven't looked at the weather, but Saturday – actually, I think Saturday they're calling for showers. We need to get a little weather segment going.
As long as we don't get a 2.5-hour delay again.
Be prepared.
Saturday, the high is only 79, I guess, because of the rain.
Okay.
But,
all right.
yeah.
There you go. Little weather here at 12:35 on a Wednesday. So last night, kudos to ESPN. Thank you, not ESPN, but thank you SEC for not dragging some of this completely out. We go ahead. We don't get the dates, so ignore if you looked at it. I had a couple people send me a text just like, "Hey, was this the actual breakdown of the schedule?" It's just the opponents. We don't know the day. We don't know the order. It's not in order either.
That'll be a separate TV special.
That's exactly in December.
In December,
They're saying December. They're saying who knows?
That's when they usually do that.
Yeah. So we'll learn the dates at least for 2026, and we'll learn the order in December. But last night we learned the actual rotation of teams, and very interesting, I thought, because we thought we knew. Chris Lowe reported, and we thought we knew the 3 permanents.
Yep.
Georgia, Florida, Kentucky. All right, good. We got those. And I like those. I assume that everybody is on board with those being great permanent opponents for the next 4. Yep. By the way, key word here, next 4 years.
Yes, it is open to be changed in 4 years. The SEC will reevaluate things. They want competitive balance, which is the idea they had when they created the original schedule when they expanded to 16, is they wanted to make sure that, one team wasn't getting any easier schedule than the others, though we kind of look at some of the schedule now and say, man, I think Texas and Missouri got off easier than some of these other schools, but, they tried at least to make it as balanced as possible. So they'll do the same thing here. If Vanderbilt ends up being phenomenal in the next 4 years, then maybe they'll change who their permanent opponents are, because that was a game that I think a lot of teams would think it'd be easier when this was first originally kind of thought of. So, they'll continue to adjust this. Now, there's certain games, the Iron Bowl, the Egg Bowl, those games are never going to go away. It's those other 1 to 2 opponents that could be flexible.
So the other part about this is obviously 9 conference games. Well, that's an odd number, which means you're going to have 5 home, 4 away, or vice versa. What they did do last night also, or at least what Alyssa Lang and that group tried to explain, is a lot of went into this, and they looked at your non-conference schedules and tried to line it up so that you were getting upwards of 7 home games per season, if that's what you chose to do. So, for example, let's look at next year. Let's look at South Carolina. Home games next year, Georgia and Kentucky, so there's your permanents, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Texas A&M. All right, so there's your 5 conference homes. So South Carolina next year will have 5 home, 4 away in conference. At this point in time, we know Miami is also a home game.
Yes.
Okay, and it's blanked. It's also blanked on me who the other non-conference game was for
I think
next.
It's Towson.
Yes, Towson. Towson on the 12th. Miami on September 5th. Towson on the 12th. Thank you.
Yep.
So there's your 7 home games for next year. By the way, pretty good home slate when you add Miami Hurricanes in with Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Georgia.
Yeah, that's
your ticket prices will be worth it.
Yes, absolutely. And again, you could talk about a Miami team that could be coming off of a deep playoff run coming in here for week number 1. So, very valuable there. And again, I like the way that the SEC did that, because, again, it does kind of create an imbalance in terms of home and away, but trying to make it as beneficial as possible into how your non-conference schedule is set up. And, next year's tickets are going to be good ones. So
then you look at 2020. So the next part of the schedule, if you miss this, it actually, you do not play the same teams in the same year. By the way, on this, now, the one that's always talked about is Georgia has yet to play at Texas A&M.
That is correct.
Georgia, since Texas A&M joined the league in 2013. 2012, Georgia has not played. Here's another one that's more shocking.
Okay.
Florida and Auburn, well-known programs, right?
Yeah.
A little bit of a tradition history. Florida has not played at Jordan-Hare Stadium since 2011.
Wow.
Florida has not been to Jordan-Hare since 2011. So there's your schedule imbalance. So the other thing they're doing here is you're rotating out. So, again, as I mentioned, next year, South Carolina, one of those teams, Mississippi State or Tennessee, whatever, you won't see them again until 2028. In 2027, you'll rotate the other teams that you missed. You'll rotate the other 6. Florida, excuse me, LSU, Missouri, good, thank goodness. I was worried we were going to lose that freaking Mayor's Cup there. Texas, at Auburn, at Mississippi, at Vanderbilt.
Yes, and I like that. You know, we're in the midst of the second year of playing the same teams back-to-back years, just flipping home and away, and there is a slight staleness to that. You know what I mean? And again, you'll have your inland opponents that you'll see every single year, but I think, you know, especially with the excitement of Oklahoma and Texas coming to the conference, that it's like, man, you would have loved to have seen Oklahoma last year and Texas this year or something along those lines. And funny enough, you're going to see Oklahoma 3 times before you see Texas the first time coming up in 2027. But I do like the fact that they're making sure that you're getting something fresh every single year. And again, you get over the course of 4 years, if you stay or you're just a freshman at South Carolina starting in 2026, you have the opportunity to see everybody at Williams-Brice Stadium over that 4-year stretch.
So is my attitude the wrong? I'm serious. What I'm going to ask is serious. Is my attitude the wrong one? I don't care about the players. I care about us, the fans, and what we get and what we get to see. Like I feel like I feel like you're making the schedules for us to keep us entertained, to keep us. One other thing on this, by the way, South Carolina. We've talked about it, like situations where they've had to this year. They go to Texas A&M.
Yep.
I forget which one is technically the longest trip. I think it's Missouri.
It's close.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But this year, South Carolina's gone to Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
They go to Texas A&M.
Yep.
They've got those long trips. You don't really have those over the next 4 years. For example, next year you do go to Oklahoma, but you don't make the trip to A&M or Missouri.
Right.
And then in 2027, you get Missouri here, but you go to Oklahoma. Excuse me, is that right? No, 2027 you get Missouri here,
yes.
but you go to you don't have either. So that's right. I got it backwards. I got A&M and Oklahoma in the same season, and they've got those correctly.
Your longest trip in 27 is Ole Miss. Your longest trip next year is Oklahoma.
But you don't have the far trips back.
You don't have
2 times a year.
Right. You don't have multiple long trips during the season. 28, you'll go to A&M, but everything else is pretty close. And then in 29, you'll go to Texas, but I mean, you'll go to Texas and Missouri in 29, so that's kind of the same thing. But yeah, you're not going to deal with that on an every other year type of basis.
803-404-6100. What do you think about these schedules? I give it a 10.
Yeah, I
give it a 10. I think for South Carolina's purposes, Georgia's back on the schedule. That's great. We get Georgia here next year. It'll be fun to welcome the Bulldogs and we assume Gunnar Stockton back here to Columbia. Kentucky has got to come back here again next year. So for those of you who love that Bourbon Trail trip and going up to Keenanland and doing all that, you got to wait until 2027. And then we get the Gators. We go down there to the Swamp next year. And what I would assume is a new coach and maybe a new quarterback for them. I'm under the assumption.
Get to go see the Lane Kiffin coach Gators.
Okay, that's not who we want there.
I don't think that's going to happen.
803-404-6100 if you want to weigh in on that. We'll come back, wrap up hour number 1, and get back into a little bit of competitive balance. Let Tyler weigh in on that. Also, some of the rivalry games that have been lost. We'll tell you about those. You're listening to Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain David Dare. It is the Halftime Show. 12:48 on your Wednesday. Tyler Head, Captain David Dare, Bill Gunner, as we carry you through here and get you set. Jay and Terry set to follow us. And coming up tomorrow, you and the Gamecock Central boys. Where are we going to be?
We're going to be at Firehouse Subs, West Columbia, across the street from Lexington Medical Center, hanging out there.
So I carried them through some.
I'm sure you've been out there probably more times than you want to be.
Yeah. But thanks to Larry and all of Firehouse Subs. Firehouse Subs, because they were there when I was in the hospital. Multiple sandwiches ordered.
Yeah.
From right there. They got, because as you know, hospital food.
Yeah.
Not exactly. A lot of great things at Lexington Medical Center. I was very impressed. And the hospital food wasn't off. I don't want to put down the cooks and chefs there. But, Firehouse Subs absolutely was a big part of the evening menu for me.
Yeah, so we'll be out there. Come by, hang out with us, eat some Firehouse Subs. We'll get you set for South Carolina and Kentucky this upcoming weekend. And, it's always fun hanging out. And we appreciate Larry for letting us be out there.
Got a particular sub you go with?
Oh, man, my favorite is, actually, it's changed a little bit.
Oh.
It used to be Turkey Bacon Ranch. Now I go with the brisket add bacon because they have the hot sauce bar back now. Brisket add bacon with Gator hammock hot sauce on it. And it is phenomenal. 10 out of 10 recommend every time.
Go buy.
So I recommended it to Jack last time we were out at the campus location. He loved it so much, he bought a bottle of the hot sauce while we were there.
Okay. All right. Good job. All right. Well, go by and see them tomorrow right across from Lexington Medical Center. They'll be out there hanging out. You can go by and see everybody, have a little football discussion as we get you set for Kentucky coming up 7:45 on Saturday night. A huge game. And look, we're going to talk a little rivalries here. I don't think it's the rivalry that South Carolina fans want. It's maybe it's the rivalry South Carolina fans need, though, because this is a winnable rivalry for South Carolina. South Carolina's dominated for a long time. Kentucky went on their little run, but it's a fun little back and forth. Again, I mentioned it, going up to Lexington. You got the Bourbon Trail, so that it makes for a great little weekend getaway.
Sure.
I know tons of people have gone to Keeneland.
Mm-hmm.
Look, it's a lot better than having to go to Starkville.
Yeah.
No offense to Starkville.
Well, I've heard there's nothing in Starkville.
There's not. I don't even think they. What is it? They tore the goalpost down and took it to a Chili's.
Yeah, so supposedly, because that's apparently all they have there.
But a few rivalries a few supposed rivalries that the SEC is going to, I don't want to say do away with, because it's only for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But it starts one with, I think, LSU, Alabama, which I don't think it's got the same cachet that it's had.
Yeah, that was it was at its peak during the Nick Saban, Les Miles years, and it's something, again, they were just SEC West opponents, so you look forward to that game every single year. I will say I think it's lost its luster a little bit in the past couple of years, but I don't know, it just kind of seems like a signature SEC game that gets played every single year, and it'd be kind of odd to not see that on the schedule.
I don't know. I'm with you. Number one, those games typically, not in follow me, were kind of boring because they were defensive slobber knockers.
Or remember the game of the century that we got twice in the same year, and LSU
9-6 and 21-0.
Yeah, and LSU didn't cross the 50-yard line the entire national championship.
Yeah, I mean they were great games from the standpoint of competitive,
superior talent. There was a billion NFL players between those two teams.
But that one now we will only see so much. The other one, and I think this one's interesting because it's one I grew up on, Tyler. Florida and Tennessee. That's Steve Spurrier, Philip Fulmer, but to me that one's lost its luster really after Spurrier at Florida.
Sure.
And Philip Fulmer both have have retired and everything. By the way, Spurrier clearly thrilled. Did you see the video clip of him?
Yeah.
If you didn't see, we might have to pull that in his thoughts on Billy Napier's offense. But going back to it, I don't know where that rivalry or that game stands if you were to rank games in the SEC now.
Yeah, again, I think it's just the nostalgia and vibe of it, because when I think SEC East, I think Florida and Tennessee. So that's just a classic game between those two. But yes, it was at its heyday back in the 90s, and, Florida had success that carried over in the 2000s. Tennessee went down to the bottom and has work their way back up. But yeah, the game doesn't have the same feel anymore. But again, it's just kind of one of those things that you almost kind of look around like, hey, when are Tennessee and Florida playing this year? Oh, they're not. That is kind of weird.
How do you feel as kind of a Georgia guy, Georgia, Tennessee? Mm-hmm. How does that one hit you? Because we here, a lot of us,
Sure.
Have the last 2 years have been, man, no Georgia. Mm-hmm. And it's been a change. It's been a change. Obviously, first time since 1992 that South Carolina, or 91, but played them. And so I know how people feel, but how do you think Georgia accepts not playing Tennessee anymore?
I think it'll be different. Again, they're not, the 1A or 1B in terms of the rivalries in the conference, because that goes to Florida and Auburn, which are still permanent opponents there. But I think that's a game that has a good history to it. And again, when you look at a game like that happened this year and games they played in the past several years, it's two programs that are towards the top of the SEC right now. So I do think there's a lot of people that are, sad to see that one go on an annual basis. But I know a lot of people are very excited to see South Carolina back on the schedule, if nothing else for proximity reasons, because again, it's the closest team to I guess Auburn's maybe about the same distance when you talk about being on the state line, but it's a closer team to Athens, and obviously the closest team for South Carolina in terms of the SEC as well. Yeah,
you're going to lose some of these games, but again, two things to remember here that I love about this. One, this isn't forever. It's for 4 years. And so I'm kind of fascinated, like in 4 years, if they look around and be like, all right, we're going to match South Carolina with Missouri, with Auburn, and let's say Vanderbilt.
Sure.
And I'm just throwing, because I do feel like if you look at this, one of the things they did was go out of their way to make sure geography and travel was a part of it.
Yeah, I think no permanent opponents are more than like 280 or 300 miles away, so they're keeping it pretty close for the most part.
Hour one in the books. We'll come back and get back into some South Carolina, Kentucky. What are some things South Carolina's got to focus on this coming week? We'll try and pinpoint those. Also, a look around college football. Oh, injury popping up yesterday. We'll tell you about that. It's the halftime show. Rolling along on a Wednesday. You know, one thing we have not talked about that I love, it is a phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal sports weekend.
Yep.
You got some great NFL games I know we'll discuss coming up on Sunday. Saturday's college football slate is second to none. And then you got the Ryder Cup also this coming weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. Final weekend of the Major League Baseball regular season. But I was watching a lot before I came on the Ryder Cup and preparing for that up at Bethpage Black. And I got to admit, 7 a.m. on Friday, if they get this thing in, weather coming in, and they're actually doing the opening ceremonies today. They're calling for a washout potentially. Tomorrow is just a practice round, is another practice round. They're saying they might actually have a washout tomorrow, a practice round, and the guys who were up there covering it were laughing that the European team's been prepping so much they might be happy with a day off just to hang around the hotel and not have to go out to the course.
Yeah, no, that's always a fun event. And again, you got so many other things going on, but that'll be fun to keep up with over the weekend. And then again, we're also kind of getting in the thick of conference play as well, where most everybody's done with their non-conference slate. No more cupcakes, and now it's business time.
No, I mean, you look again at the schedule for this coming weekend, and we mentioned it, and we'll get more into it this hour because of some injuries. But in the noon window, Southern Cal, ranked number 21, they go to Illinois, and Illinois trying to dig themselves out of the dirt after what occurred over the weekend up in Bloomington.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's surprised that Illinois lost because, again, we figured Indiana was pretty good. But to get skull drug like that, and I think Kurt Cignetti was trying to prove a point that, again, the knock on Indiana last year was, you had an easy schedule. You played one quality team in Ohio State and lost that game, and then lost your college ball playoff game. And again, they played nobody in the first 3 weeks of the season, but I think you said, okay, I'll show you what we're made of, and proceeded to do what they did to Brett Bielema's team. And it's kind of funny because, again, Kurt Cignetti had said his things in the offseason that I think started to rub some people the wrong way, but at the same time, it's like, he did do that to Brett Bielema. So, and he's obviously become public enemy number 2 behind only Dabo Swinney, I guess, here locally. So, I imagine a lot of people, if you checked in on that game, were probably rooting for Indiana.
I was shocked. We'll get more into this, the schedule as a whole there, because, again, a lot of really fun, interesting games. I mean, you got a game, honestly, that's not under the radar, but we're not even talking about it, and that's Auburn and Texas A&M, and Auburn trying to bounce back with Jackson Arnold, Texas A&M at number 9 in the country. So a lot of really good games this weekend, and we'll talk more about that to go along with the Ryder Cup. Jack weighs in as we've been talking permanent opponents on our text line. He says, really disappointed. No Vanderbilt on the permanent opponent schedule. Nothing better than Broadway in Nashville on Thursday and Friday night before the game. He says our 6 couples that travel to away games that are drivable decided last night we will go once a year when Vandy is at home and South Carolina somewhere out in Texas, Oklahoma, or Missouri, and they'll wear black to fit in. Okay,
yeah, that's fair. And as somebody that just experienced Broadway for the first time earlier on this year, I can attest it's very fun. So I definitely see the appeal. It's expensive. We spent a lot of money. You know, you get to those rooftop bars, and when you add in food, drinks, and all that kind of stuff, you spend a hefty little penny.
Steven weighing in earlier and said, love the permanent opponents and who is coming to Willie B in the next few years. Need to find a Gamecock cowboy hat to welcome Texas in 2027.
Well, you got time.
Yeah, that Texas game, I kind of got to admit, be interested to see. We don't get to see Arch Manning. That much,
no,
I think we're pretty confident in.
But insert whatever 5-star quarterback they probably have at that point in time.
Yeah.
You know, so that'll be a good squad. I don't deny this can be a good team coming in here in 2027.
803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in if you want to do so. South Carolina, though, is focused on Kentucky for this coming weekend. And, Tyler, where do you start? We start breaking down this game. We start really getting into the nitty-gritty.
Sure.
Give me the first thing that you're like, all right, because I feel like right now I can give you 4 options, and you got to make a decision, but I'll just throw them all out to you. Where do you go with, That's what South Carolina has to do. Number one goal on Saturday night.
Stop shooting yourself in the foot before the snap.
Okay.
Fix the pre-snap penalties. That is
So that's
the most.
going to be your.
Yeah,
That's going to be.
that is the most correctable thing. Again, you got issues running the ball, you got issues tackling on defense, and those are things that obviously you got to work on too. But the simplest thing to fix, and I say simple, it's not that easy, but you got to make sure you're not hurting yourself before the plays are even happening.
I go, quite frankly, with stop the run. Is South Carolina the last 2 weeks? Vanderbilt started to chew them up a little bit there, especially in the third and fourth quarter. And we all know, again, Ahmad Harvey last week, we know what he did and how he was able to get loose. Now, I want to be clear on this because I saw a lot of people, look, yes, the tackling was bad. He's also doing that to other people.
Sure.
All right?
It's not just you.
Yeah.
And he might be a Heisman finalist this year.
It's wide open, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation.
Especially right now.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation to come back with. But South Carolina has to stop the run on Saturday night. I think if you start ranking things out, I think Lenore Sellers can carry you with the pass game. I think these wide receivers are coming along. I loved what I saw last Saturday night as guys, Vandravius Jacobs coming along, Nick Harbor's kind of proving himself. I feel like you know what you've got. Mazio Bennett's due for a breakout game. Brian Rowe, it feels like they're really trying to shove him in there and get him going. So I feel like the offense, even without a run game, which – look, I have no anticipation of them showing up and having a run game. South Carolina's offense can do some things against Kentucky. But if you can't stop the run, if you can't stop what the Wildcats want to do running the football, and we know that's what Mark Stoops likes to do. Seth McGowan comes in. He's got 51 carries on the year, 275 yards and 6 touchdowns for them. You know that's where they're trying to go with this.
Yeah, Dante Dowdle pretty capable back two. They're kind of about splitting carries. McGowan getting a few more, and I just pulled up their numbers. Seth McGowan has forced 15 missed tackles so far this year, so something to watch because, again, that's been a problem these past 2 weeks. But, yeah, especially considering the fact you're going to be taking on a true freshman, not a true freshman, a first-time starting quarterback in Cutter Boley, force him to try and beat you, right? Again, this guy's only started one game against Eastern Michigan and looked good in that game, but there's a different story going on the road to the SEC, and if you take one element of their offense away and force him to have to go out there and be perfect through the air, then that's how you can win this game.
And I think part of that, I've been a big believer, and if it doesn't come to fruition this week, I'll stop, I promise, is the atmosphere at Williams-Brice Stadium because they've really built it up. Now, it's a sellout. They posted that. It's sold out. So you get in there, and again, Cutter Boley is coming in. He's going to make his first start ever. You get in there and you get that place loud, and he's got to make some checks at the line of scrimmage. South Carolina's done a good job with some blitzes. They've gotten to the quarterback this year. Dylan Stewart's due for a breakout game. I know he's frustrated. He's been double and triple teamed. He's been held. You can see the frustration starting to build with him. I don't think he's frustrated with the coaching staff or with his teammates. I think he's frustrated with the way he's being blocked and now kind of being focused on, and that's all part of the game. But you make Cutter Boley have to throw the football, not rely on that run game that Mark Stoops does so much. That's why, again, I go with goal number one, stop the run. Yeah,
and this is a game, a Kentucky team that hasn't given up a ton of sacks, but their tackles are kind of the weaker point of their offensive line, so you have an opportunity to get some pressure on Cutter Boley and, again, force this guy that's going into the most daunting thing he's faced so far in his short college career and put him under pressure, make him go out there and have to beat you, and you feel pretty good about your chances there, and obviously make tackles too. That'll go a long way in stopping the run.
Kentucky comes in 6th in the league. Again, just 3-game sample size, but averaging 214 yards on the ground. They got 9 touchdowns. We just mentioned that Seth McGowan leading the way with 6 there. But that's number one. Number two, I know I said I'm not as worried about South Carolina's run game. You do have to find a way to unlock some form of a running game with Lenore Sellers.
Yeah, you got to have something to complement what you're trying to do through the air. And this goes back to what Coach Beamer was saying yesterday, and he was asked the question of, hey, why isn't Sellers, being used as effectively? And he said, hey, teams are game planning for him, which is true. You're dedicating a linebacker or two to making sure that Sellers doesn't kill you with his feet, and that makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, you do have a very special dynamic quarterback that we saw last year. Even when teams like Clemson were putting somebody on him with the assignment of stopping Sellers with his feet, he was still able to get past them, break tackles and all that kind of stuff and make things happen. And I don't know if it's a hesitancy in the way he's being coached, the hesitancy in Sellers himself when it comes to not taking off and making some of those runs happen. But there's clearly something different from a year ago because, again, those capabilities with his feet have not been seen through 4 games so far this season.
I think that's a good point. He looks tentative, and I think part of it is other teams are waiting on him. I mean, they're playing the run. They are playing the run. And look, again, not trying to defend the offensive line. They need to get a lot better and do it really by Saturday night. But teams are playing the run, and one way you can help your offensive line is throw the football, back them off. And some of it is not designed runs with Lenore Sellers. It's allowing him to do what he does and scramble to do that. Here's Shane Beamer yesterday talking about fixing some of the current issues that they have.
I mean, there's plenty, and again, we have what we have, Jack. We have our plan to win, like a lot of people have, and for us, that's run the ball, stop the run. That's win the turnover battle, win the explosive play battle, play smart football, which is penalties, and then dominating the fourth quarter. Dominate the fourth quarter, meaning you win the fourth quarter. Play smart football, meaning you have less penalties than the other team. Run the ball and stop the run. That's yards per carry. Win the explosive play battle. That's a run over 12 or a pass over 18. And then win the turnover battle. That speaks for itself. So every week, you can go back to game 1 against Eastern Illinois back in 2021. If we do that, if we just do, I think it's 6 things that I just named. If we do half of those, we typically win every single game. And we didn't do anything the other night other than win the turnover battle. And I told the team going into it, if we, the last 2 trips that we've gone to Missouri, we haven't won the plan to win enough of it. And we didn't the other night. So to me, go back and do that. And if we can be a little bit better and do more than just winning the turnover battle, then we're going to feel pretty good on Saturday night.
That fourth quarter is key because we go back on it. South Carolina didn't play well the other night, but they're in position in the fourth quarter to win, and he just said didn't win the fourth quarter.
The lead going into the fourth quarter.
Exactly.
And then you had the ball twice, only down 6, where you could have gone in and taken the lead, and you didn't do that. And then Missouri kicked a field goal, and it was out of reach at that point. But you had your opportunities. As bad as you played through the first 3 quarters, you had your opportunities there to make something happen, and it didn't happen. And again, you're not going to win all those categories every single week. But the more of those you win, the better chance you have of winning the game.
Yeah, South Carolina, this week, and it's, again, I believe it's a dogfight. I believe it's a close game. I believe fourth quarter they're going to trot out the fireworks and do all that, and they'll play the video, and the stadium will be all nice and smoky there to start the fourth quarter. But people are going to be invested. It's going to be, in my opinion, a fourth quarter game because these two teams actually are built kind of similar when you start talking about trying to build along the lines of scrimmage. And that's what Shane, you just said it right there. He wants to run the ball and stop the run. South Carolina's not running the ball, and right now they're not stopping the run, and Kentucky wants to run the ball, and they want to stop the run.
Yeah, Kentucky with those 2 running backs, they're 6th in the SEC in rush yards per game. They did put up 172 against Ole Miss in that game a couple weeks ago, but they're struggling on offense when it comes to passing. Now, again, we don't know everything about Cutter Boley, but, again, their MO is to run the ball, and, again, that's kind of the mindset that Mark Stoops has always had up there. They've had very capable backs in the past, and that's what they're going to try and do, and it really could come down to who runs the ball best on Saturday night.
Timbo weighs in. Pin and pull. Pin and pull. Worked with a bad offensive line in the past. Timbo wants the pin and pull. Okay. We'll go. Maybe Sean Elliott will weigh in on that at some point. 803-404-6100 if you want to text in this afternoon. You're listening to Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain David Dare. We'll come back. We'll start to look around college football. That massive injury to the Heisman leader already now starting to have an impact. It may even have an impact on South Carolina. We'll tell you all about it. You're listening to the Halftime Show. 119 on your Wednesday afternoon as we roll along here talking some South Carolina football, getting ready for the weekend. Again, want to remind you, coming up tomorrow, Tyler in the Gamecock Central game will be out at Firehouse Subs right across from Lexington Medical Center, so you want to go by and hang out with them. We had a texter weigh in just a little while ago and say that listening to our discussion on subs now, he or she, whoever it was, anonymous, was going to go by Firehouse Subs right after they got off work.
It works.
There you go. So make sure you go by and hang out with them. They'll be there tomorrow. Again, that's the one right across from Lexington Medical Center on Highway 378 there in Lexington. And again, I'll thank those people too. I thanked everybody yesterday at the Lexington Medical Center, doctors and nurses there. I did that on Monday that took care of me. I need to thank the people at Firehouse Subs because, yeah, they were – that was a big part of the dinner menu.
I didn't even ask what's your go-to.
I do the club on a sub, but
Okay.
And I'm bad at change. I'm so bad at change.
Yeah.
Because the meatball sub is delicious.
It's all good.
You mentioned some of the grilled chicken ones they have. So yeah, but club on a sub, like,
Yeah.
I can't go wrong on that.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
No, I know what I got going there. 803-404-6100. Also, again, reminder for our show tomorrow, 2 o'clock, Lamont Paris will be joining us. I'm interested to talk with him a little bit tomorrow about basketball season. Save up a couple dollars because when you go to that opening game, you're going to have to purchase a program to find out, figure out who all the new players are.
I was going to say, it's going to be like a brand new team outside of Michi Johnson making his return.
Yeah, you'll be able to recognize some of them, but yeah, they'll all be taken to the court. They started practice yesterday. They put a video out last night and watched some of that, but exciting new season. I like this team. The question for anything is how do they come together?
Yeah.
Like it's not this to me, and we'll talk basketball coming up tomorrow, but it's not a question of talent. It's not a question of coaching. How can you get guys chemistry wise? Because I'll even circle back to football right now. South Carolina's out there trying to put in a new center who's a transfer, Boaz Stanley. Didn't seem to go well.
Yeah, and look, you can look at these guys individually for what they did at their past schools, no matter what sport it is. But yeah, you come into a new setting, a new coach, new teammates around you, and sometimes it doesn't always mesh well. And you look at last year with the combination of guys they had on the court for South Carolina. It obviously didn't go well, and the season was bad compared to what you had the year before, which did feature a lot of transfers too that came in and fit exactly what Lamont Paris was doing. So yeah, that's the concern of, okay, you brought in all these guys. We saw what they did at their prior schools or whatever. Now is it going to work here at South Carolina under what Coach Paris has asked them to do? So we'll see. We'll
talk again with him. So put that on your calendars. 2 o'clock tomorrow, Lamont Paris will join us. He'll call in, and we will talk with him about the upcoming season and also his shooting ability, because if you saw his tweet last night, he's got it. The man still got it. So 803-404-6100. So the big news yesterday, a little bit of a news dump. Mike Gundy gets fired. We were on air when that happened. Right after we left, we learned John Mateer, Heisman frontrunner now, had a broken hand. And did you catch them talking about this last night on the SEC Network?
I did a little bit, and apparently he hurt that hand in the first quarter Saturday against Auburn. Still played the rest of the game and put up pretty respectable numbers, all things considered. But and they're on the bye this week. They got Kent State coming up next week, and then it's the rivalry game against Texas after that. So the debate is how long he's going to be out. It's like 3-ish weeks. Maybe, kind of, but again, you never know with surgeries. Could be longer, could be some complications and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, the Heisman front runner, at least on the shelf for a couple weeks.
Throwing hand, too, which matters, because but I think I do wonder let's say he comes back. You're talking about him maybe just having to gain some strength in that hand to grip the football, to throw it in the manner that he wants. Then also is part of his game, much like Connor Shaw's game. He's, by the way, John Mateer is the closest thing I've seen to Connor Shaw in college football. Mm-hmm. Like the way he kind of plays, the way he kind of moves around. There's a lot of things that, to me, just watching him is very similar. But that's a massive injury because right now Brent Venables might have the best defense in the country.
Sure.
And he's got a quarterback. They weren't exactly spectacular this weekend, right?
Yeah.
Like he wasn't. You mentioned it. He had good numbers, but it wasn't like they just went out and they're blowing people away offensively. but there's something about them that seems like, all right, they got to get a touchdown, they got to make a play, they got to cheat up on the referees a little bit, they got to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, and they quite literally did cheat up on the referees there. And again, John Mateer is just kind of a playmaker type of guy, and they're going to turn to Michael Hawkins Jr., who started against South Carolina last year, and we know that win. Now, again, he had a bad offensive line, had no receiving help around him, so that doesn't mean they're going to turn into a team that can't score 10 points all of a sudden, but I think there will be a drop-off compared to what you're doing with, with John Mateer, and that, to me, begs the question of, okay, well, if Oklahoma loses a couple games without their star quarterback, how is that viewed? Do you give them the mulligan because you say your star isn't out there? Like, these are serious discussions we could be having with the committee come December.
Well, I think the question will be what I would hope it would be. Who did you lose to? So in this situation, let's say they lose to Texas. What is the score of the game? Let's losing 42-7 without your quarterback is a lot different than losing 27-20 in that scenario. What is the score of the game? We should point out on this, you mentioned Kent State. Oklahoma's got to bye this week. So, all right, you get everything figured out. They get Kent State on the 4th. They'll win that. They'll have no problem. They'll sack Kent State 27 times. The defense might even score a couple times in that one. Then you play Texas. And you kind of pointed this out. I feel like this is the weekend. I don't know if people are paying attention. This is the weekend we learn a little bit more about Texas. Texas has to go to Florida.
Sure.
And Florida's reeling and all kinds of issues. Billy Napier, as a matter of fact, just in the last hour has said on the SEC teleconference that he's going to continue to call ball plays. He's staying as the offense coordinator. All right, Billy,
okay.
Good job. Yeah,
gonna go down with the ship then.
Hey, let's keep playing the violin. But we don't know what Texas is. Like, they were competitive. Ohio State's good, and Texas was right there with them.
They played a good defensive game. Their offense just was non-existent for most of it.
But then they've walloped up on San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston. But at least Florida's a living, breathing opponent.
Yeah.
And they got to go to Gainesville,
yeah.
where we go, okay, who are you now a little bit more?
And Florida's defense isn't terrible.
No.
Like they did a good job of keeping that Miami game close the other weekend until Miami scored, there at the very end to really put it out of reach. So that's a capable defense that could give Texas some problems. But, yeah, I think taking on Oklahoma, and it does, unfortunately, it does suck that John Mateer maybe not be available for that game because I was looking forward to him against that Texas defense and seeing how he would do. But, yeah, that will be kind of our first glimpse into how good Texas is and, if Oklahoma can get their lick back from a year ago.
So, yeah, he comes back. But then you follow that up. This is where it gets dicey for Oklahoma when you start talking about the schedule. And it's expected. It's expected that they'll have him back. But after the South Carolina game, they make a trip to Oxford to take on Mississippi. And by the way, just throwing this out as we do a little look around here, and we'll get more in the next segment into the national look around, being reported just a little while ago that Trinidad Chambliss will get another third start for Mississippi this weekend against LSU.
Why not? I mean, gosh, it looks like there's no drop-off at all. And, again, if Austin Simmons is still the plan, give him as much time as he needs to get healed up because Trinidad Chambliss has done a great job in his couple of weeks filling in.
But Mississippi, again, Oklahoma has Texas. Then they'll get South Carolina. They'll follow that up with, again, a trip. Excuse me, they get Ole Miss in Norman. Mm-hmm. And then it's a trip to Tennessee, bye week, followed by a trip to Alabama. And listen, don't sleep on Missouri. I'm telling people right now, do not sleep on Missouri. Oklahoma's got to go to Missouri gets Missouri in Norman Saturday, November the 22nd.
Yeah, no, Missouri, very capable team, and obviously might have the best running back in all of college football right now, so that certainly could be a huge game late in the season. And again, when he comes back from the surgery, what kind of shape's he in? Again, it's his throwing hand.
Right.
And you truly never know, and he may not be the same type of guy that he was before the injury, and again, that's a whole different conversation when we get there, but yeah, definitely, and you almost wonder, like, does this derail the Heisman campaign? Do they give him a mulligan for being out for a couple weeks? How do they view that? Because it kind of seemed like he was leading the charge through a month of the season.
It's a gauntlet. 7 conference games to go for Oklahoma, 6 against ranked teams. The one non-ranked team, University of South Carolina. We'll continue on. Let's get into a little bit of big picture college football. It's going to be a great weekend. We'll look at some of those games here on a Wednesday. You're listening to Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave Adair. It is the Halftime Show. 134. As we roll along, a little upbeat, jazzy music. Still got to give Tyler my some of my particular picks to put in for our bumper music, but that one right there is jazzy and kind of keeps you upbeat here as we roll along, getting set for South Carolina and Kentucky on Saturday night over at Williams-Brice Stadium. But I tell you what, if you're not going to the game, you need to make sure you got plenty of TVs around the house, that you are set for a monster weekend. College football is a sport unlike any other. When you get weekends like this, Tyler, this is what you sit down and enjoy. You make up the best menu you can. Maybe you fire up the smoker. I got to admit, right now, bourbon is not on my menu that I'm allowed to have. But you grab the great bottle of bourbon, you fire up the smoker, you get the grill going, and, man, you just sit there and you just – I say not. Listen, this is a whole other story that you didn't have written down. I'm back into – I appreciate game day.
Sure.
The Lee Corso thing, we'll do this in the next hour with Corso and the final show and everything. But I've enjoyed game day, and I just think even Pat McAfee's brought something a little bit different this year to it. But I say all that because you get all that going, man, 9 a.m. to – what's the very last game here? Let's see. Oh, boy.
Usually like 10:15, 10:30 kicks.
10:15 will be your last Colorado and BYU. So time that out, that'll be about 1 a.m. So, yeah, about 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. Football all day long.
Yeah, and again, you kind of ran through some of the high-quality matchups there, and we've been kind of teased a little bit through the first couple weeks. You know, we had a really good week one, had a couple games here and there through the first couple weeks, but you haven't had the full slate to really dive into. Because, again, a lot of teams are playing non-conference opponents, which is G5 and FCS and all that kind of stuff. Now you kind of really start getting into the meat of everybody's schedule and playing, you know, the conference games with consequences, all that kind of stuff. And, this looks like a great weekend ahead. And, again, part of me is always excited to be in Williams-Brice Stadium, but, you know, that FOMO of what I'm not seeing while that's happening is definitely going to eat at me a little bit.
I've got people that have listened to me for the last 9 years know that as I've gotten older, 7:45 games have become I'm like an old man. I shake my fist at them. I do that more now. And so you're right. It'll be a late night at Williams-Brice. But let's go through some of these games here for the weekend, see what stands out to Tyler. I mentioned Southern Cal and Illinois.
Yep.
Quickly here, right now, Southern Cal 6.5-point favorite in that game.
So I watched a little bit of SC play
Michigan State
last week, and so they look pretty good. Again, that's a Michigan State team that we probably don't think too highly of right now. And I give credit to Lincoln Riley because last year he finally realized, hey, I need defense if I'm going to survive in the Big Ten. They made some changes, and they were better. It wasn't leaps and bounds better. They were better a year ago. So I'm really interested to see how they do against a team that is very capable in Illinois coming in there and taking them on. And again, Lincoln Riley is always a good offensive mind. They get Jordan Mayave at quarterback now after Miller Moss went to Louisville. And, this will be the first real test to really see what Southern Cal is made of this year. And if Lincoln Riley does have that team back on track again.
Yeah, Trojans 4-0 on the season. You just mentioned it. Haven't really played anybody. Got victories in the Big Ten over Purdue and Michigan State. So they're number 21 in the country. Just kind of hanging out there.
Just quietly operating as they need to.
Also at 12 o'clock, Notre Dame, Arkansas on Saturday. Notre Dame, we've kind of brushed them aside. Look, man, losses to Miami and Texas A&M is nothing to sneeze at right now. Arkansas, oh boy, that was a brutal one for Sam Pittman and the Razorbacks in Memphis last week.
You don't fault Arkansas if they lose this game, but if this one's ugly, coming off the heels of how they lost to Ole Miss and how they lost to Memphis this past weekend, I mean, there could be our fourth coach right there that gets canned in Uncle Sam.
Okay. All right. That would be fun. By the way, Razorbacks a 3.5-point underdog in that. That'll be in Fayetteville. They're playing that one in Fayetteville, and that would be at noon. A couple other just interesting ones at noon. Duke, Syracuse. Hey, Fred Brown. Now what do you do?
Yeah, I'd say don't trip on your own 2 feet there. I think for anybody that watched the Duke Illinois game the other week, I think you realize, okay, maybe Duke's not that great.
Right.
So this seemingly, and again, you don't have Steve Angeli now, so you're down a starting quarterback. But how do you respond after a big win last week? Don't get caught sleeping in your follow-up game.
So you got that one. You also got an ACC matchup, Louisville and Pittsburgh going at it at noon. That game will be on ESPN2. The Cardinals on the road. They're a 4.5-point favorite. Real quick, 12:45, Utah State and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt hung a 70 spot last week on Georgia State. But Georgia State, by the way, that football program is it's on fire.
It was that was a revenge game from a year ago.
That is very true.
Remember, they lost in Atlanta to Georgia State before beating Alabama last year. So, they had a point to prove in that one. And look, here's the thing. Vanderbilt very likely is going to move to 5-0 this upcoming weekend. And
then it starts.
And then it really starts. So we're going to really learn about this Vanderbilt team and if, they are truly something different compared to what they've been in years past.
3 touchdown favorites. But, yeah, seeing Vandy put a 70 spot up was something to behold.
I didn't realize their scorebook could go that high.
Nobody
unless
knew
it's
it.
for the other team.
They didn't know it. 3:30, again, Washington hosting Ohio State. Washington kind of just doing their own thing out west. They've got a very good home winning streak going. They're 3-0 on the season. They've blitzed everybody, UC Davis and Washington State. Here comes Ohio State. And Ohio State, welcome back to college football. We saw you in week 1, and we forgot who you were after that.
I was going to say, that's the funny thing and the way the schedule's set up in the Big Ten where, they may play one high-profile opponent, but then they play the nobodies for a couple weeks. Like, oh, yeah, Ohio State's supposed to be the best team in the country, and we just haven't been paying them any attention because they've been beating everybody pretty soundly.
That one will be a lot of fun, 3:30 CBS. 2 great SEC games again. LSU and Ole Miss, we'll talk more about this later on in the week, and Auburn, Texas A&M. Mississippi right now a 1.5-point favorite over LSU. A&M a 6.5-point favorite over Auburn.
Yeah, and look, LSU's offense hasn't wowed through the first couple games, 17 points against Clemson, and then they kind of slogged through the other games. They had a defensive score that helped them beat Florida a couple weeks ago. So I don't think we've really seen them live up to their potential as of yet. Kind of like South Carolina, when you have what's a potential first-round quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier, you expect to kind of more out of them. And Ole Miss has been putting up the points. And again, Trinidad Chambliss, even as the backup, they haven't really skipped a beat there. Their defense could use a little bit of work. So I think that could be a fun game on Saturday.
Also at 3:30, for those of you who want to punish somebody, if your kids have been bad, they haven't been listening to you, they're not eating their vegetables, 3:30 on Saturday, UCLA and Northwestern. That game will be on the Big Ten Network. It'll be at Northwestern.
That game should be on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you feel the need to punish a child or another adult for something that they've wronged you with, just tell them to flip over to the Big Ten Network.
Somebody will be happy after that game. One side has to be.
Northwestern, I would say Northwestern's a 6.5-point favorite. By the way, this is why I don't ever believe this stuff. Now, I love what Northwestern's doing. They're playing on that soccer field while they're renovating their field.
Yeah.
But ESPN tells me tickets are as low as $74 for UCLA Northwestern.
Oh, because there's only 12 seats.
That's why that's why I do kind of believe that. But I also am like, that ain't nobody. No.
Yeah. If you pay more than $10 to see, if you pay to see that game, there's something wrong with you.
That's a good point. If you don't have a family member playing, Oklahoma State, 3:30, ESPN2, they take on Baylor.
Ooh, how much does Baylor hang on them?
I'm blanking all of a sudden. The offensive, not Jim Knowles. I'm blanking on the offensive coordinator who's taken over. Keep an eye on that one. Keep an eye on that one. Dave Aranda's not exactly in a great position either with Baylor.
He's not.
And they go in there, and I don't think Oklahoma State's completely void of talent. And all of a sudden, as I went to mention them, I've blanked on that name. We'll come back. We'll look at the evening games, give you some thoughts, some great evening games to go along with the Gamecocks and the Wildcats. You're listening to Tyler Head, Captain David Ayer, Bill Gunner. It is the Halftime Show. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on your Wednesday. Troy weighing in. It will be a great football weekend for me. Clemson cannot lose. And they are on a bye week. We have not mentioned them.
And then, they get a hapless North Carolina team next week. And so it could be a good couple of weeks.
Oh, North Carolina. That's another one to circle for the what has Bill missed?
Yeah, it's a long list of things that you've missed in 7 weeks. So I'm trying to space it out a little bit. But, yeah, there's a lot of – I mean, you were here for the Jordan Hudson stuff earlier on in the year.
And you know what? That annoyed me beyond I didn't want to talk about it in the spring and all that. I was annoyed with it.
If it was anybody other than Bill Belichick, it wouldn't have been as interesting.
Right.
But because it was him, it's like he's being manipulated by this 20-year-old woman. Well, what's going on here? But that's died down a little bit. Though she was on the sideline, I saw before they
Central
got
Florida,
walled by Central Florida on Saturday.
Which went right around with the 34-9 thumping. KT in Lexington weighs in and is excited this weekend. He points out interested in the Penn State, Oregon game and Georgia, Bama. And that leads us to the night slate of games.
Yes.
And, Penn State, Oregon is – I don't know what to make of Oregon football right now with Dan Lanning.
Yeah, and look, they're a program that's gotten steadily better in his now, I guess, 4th year that he's been at the helm. They haven't really played anybody of note. The Oklahoma State game a couple years ago looked like it would have been good, and they obviously, ripped him to shreds there. So they haven't really been tested so far this season. I think Dante Moore looks good from what I've seen of him so far, because I did tune in some of that game against Oklahoma State, and they just haven't really been tested. So.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Dante Moore, whatever, 5-star quarterback, and you look at him on the season, 962 yards. He's completing 75% of his passes, 11 touchdowns, and an interception. And you mentioned it, though, with Oregon. Who have they played? What have they done right now? They thumped Montana State 59-13. Oklahoma State had no chance, 69-3. They went to Northwestern in that soccer field and won 34-14. And then last week hammered Oregon State 41-7. So now they go on a little bit of a run here where they get challenged, and they'll start with a whiteout up in Happy Valley. And then, by the way, they get a bye week before hosting Indiana. So at least we'll kind of learn something there. As it stands now, as we're sitting here, Penn State favored in this game, I believe, is what I saw.
Oh, big game, James. Here we go again.
And Penn State, very similar. Penn State has not played anybody. We don't know who, what, or anything about Penn State.
They've played nobody up to this point, but there's a lot of concern in Happy Valley about Drew Aller, because he hasn't looked spectacular through the first couple games, to the point, and I forget who brought this up last week, going into the Missouri game, there are message boards out there saying, hey, did we hang on to the right quarterback? Should we have held on to Bo Perbula and let Drew Aller go? Because, again, he hasn't, wowed people so far. And, look, he lost a phenomenal tight end in Tyler Warren from a season ago. So I'm sure that isn't helping, but I don't think people are getting the results they expected out of him. And now I guess his third, fourth, whatever, how many years he's been the starter out there for Penn State.
Year three. That one again will be on NBC. Penn State a 3.5-point favorite. And then here in the SEC on ABC, Alabama and Georgia. Here we are back to where Kalen DeBoer was at his coaching high last year. Having knocked off Georgia, we all thought, all right, here goes Alabama. They're not going to skip a beat. Ryan Williams is 15 years old. I don't know, maybe he's 13 and he's playing college football and he's making people look silly. And now, fast forward a year later, Georgia's a 3-point favorite. This game will be in Athens. I think there's talk of a blackout or something they're going to do over there.
I hope not. Please don't.
And maybe it was a joke, but
the fans can do it. Just no black jerseys.
Don't do the jerseys.
Don't do the jerseys. Not for this game.
And now you get Bama coming in, and Ty Simpson has been red hot, but again, he hadn't played anybody.
Yeah, this is very much all right, prove to us that you've changed something from week one, because they looked horrible in week one against, Florida State. And, as weird as it sounds, can Kirby really get over the Alabama hump? He's beaten Alabama once in his time as Georgia's head coach, and that was for the national championship. But every time after that, when they played Nick Saban, they lost. And then, of course, losing to Kalen DeBoer in that wild game a year ago. And there's just something about Alabama that trips them up more often than not. And this seems like the perfect opportunity to not let that be the case. Got the game at home. We'll see what happens.
Is this the opportunity to put the death nail in the Alabama aura coffin. Like it to me, and it's very easy to say no. Florida State's already done that. Florida State wiped out that aura of Alabama. But there's part of it is like we just expect Alabama to rise up in these situations.
Sure.
But that's a mindset of Nick Saban's their coach. If Georgia goes out and wins this one by 10, 12, 14 points, do we go, yeah, okay, Alabama, welcome back to college football with the rest of us?
Yeah, if it's not competitive, it's not a tight game down to the wire, then yeah, I think that whole, okay, this is just what Alabama is now, kind of starts to set in a little bit. Because, again, they look great in the past couple of weeks, but we still can't shake what we saw against Florida State and the lack of effort in that game. And yeah, if Kirby's team runs over them on Saturday, then yeah, okay, this is just what Alabama is now. I think kind of becomes a little bit more permanent.
Just not that anybody is going to tune in, but kind of an interesting, fun one just for those with longing eyes. App State at 7:30 goes out to Boise State.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Long trip.
Little Dow Loggins action. The boys from Boone heading out to the Blue Turf to take on Boise State, Kentucky, South Carolina, BYU, Colorado at 10:15. So there's your full Saturday slate. We'll talk more about it as the week goes on. Get to Thursday, Friday. Get you ready. Thursday's actually not going to be too bad either. We'll talk more about that. But we'll get into hour number 3. Revisit some topics from August. What did I miss and what did I think about them? We'll do that and carry on with some South Carolina, Kentucky. It is the Halftime Show. 2 o'clock here as we rock along on your Wednesday. Tyler Head, Captain David there, Bill Gunner, as I have gotten complete control of the thermostat again here in the studios to make sure that it is not a Arctic igloo in here. Well, some things never change.
Yeah, well, I think it's warmer later in the day because when you were coming in at 6 a.m., I know that's the coldest
my
part.
goodness.
So
Oh,
I
dear.
think you're at least coming in at the warmer part of the day as far as studio temperature goes.
Well, I feel like the last few days I've kind of messed around with it, and I feel like we've upset Jay Phillips when he comes in because it's not his usual ice box that he keeps in here to keep from sweating.
Jay could sweat in Antarctica.
Yes, yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. So, yeah, so I'm sure Jay is, of all the people, the one the most thrilled that I'm back because I'm in here and I'm cutting up the heat, actually, on a day when it's still 90 outside to keep Tyler and I warm in here in this studio as we roll along. But getting you ready for the weekend, and one of the little segments we've been doing is not getting ready for the weekend. It's looking back because for 7 weeks I was hanging out in the hospital, and there were things that occurred, and I had opinions. I just didn't get to talk about them.
Yeah, you missed quite a bit, including, and I guess he's been proven right now, but a little bit of a beef between South Carolina and Brett McMurphy, now of On3, which you also missed. On3 is now acquiring every major sports media entity out there. Josh Pate, Chris Lowe, Brett McMurphy. Gosh, the list goes on. They've got everybody now.
Yeah, no, On3, Shannon Terry, who I actually worked for at one point in my life. He was the one that started, well, when he got started with 24/7 Sports. I worked with him, and he taught me a lot of things, and was a lot of fun to work for, and a brilliant guy. And God, who knows how much money he's got now because he has started Rivals, went and started on 24/7 Sports, and then left there and then started On3. So he seems to have that niche down. Man, I love preseason polls. I love preseason polls because of what we do, and it gives us something to talk about. But you can't take the polls seriously. We just don't know, especially now.
Yeah.
This has evolved even more so in the last 5 or 6 years with preseason polls because of the transfer portal and because we don't know how teams really are and who's who and what's what. But I love them, but if you're like angry at them and you're having a beef, might be time to take a nap. Might be time to like go on vacation to reevaluate some of your life. Because I quite frankly, even now, you know, we're talking about it.
Sure.
What do we know about Pitt? Penn State's 3, I believe. Is it 3 or I think it's 3 or 2. 3 is the AP
3.
poll. What do we know about Penn State? What do we truly know about Oregon? I think we know something about Georgia.
We know both those teams were in the college football playoff last year, and that's pretty much what we're riding off of.
Yeah.
Up until this weekend, at least.
I mean, we're still learning. We are, yes, technically, if I was to rank, if I had to do a ranking, I guess Miami should be number 1. I guess.
They've proven more through the first couple weeks based on who they played, sure. But and look, I'm in the camp of I wish we just dropped the first poll in mid-October, or we just wait till the college football playoff poll comes out. That way you have 8 or 9 weeks worth of data to really start compiling. Because, again, we don't know, especially now with how much turnover and change happens with the portal and all that kind of stuff. Teams can change
polls are fun.
year to year.
Polls
but
are
it gives something to talk about.
Yeah, polls are fun. That was fun when South Carolina was right there on the cusp of the top 10, and it was fun to look at it, talk about it. And you know, Ohio State's probably used to it, but they're number 1. I'm sure that's fun to have number 1 next to your name.
And after week 1, Carolina moved up to 10. And based on the way, because, again, you have automatics and all that kind of stuff, they were technically in the playoff at that point in time after week 1 based on how the rankings work if you assumed the highest-ranked teams from every conference would be conference champions. So that was a fun moment. But, again, Brett McMurphy, who publicly was putting his AP poll out every single week and still does, you know, caught a lot of flack from Carolina fans, and to the point, I wish I still had the cut, but he was on the Andy and Ari show and said some fan emailed him, and, you know, the tagline was, "Big fan of your work," or whatever, and then he opens and says, "Just kidding, you suck." Sincerely, a Carolina fan or whatever. So, you know, he's dealt that blowback. But
I give them credit. That's a pretty good little.
That's a good way to hook somebody.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're a month into the season and he wasn't wrong.
No, I'd have to go back and look at his. So you had that. All right. So South Carolina fans beefing with Brett McMurphy. What else do we have here?
I think we had maybe the greatest week 1 in college football history. You had a lot of high-profile matchups, a lot of fun games, and really throughout the entire weekend. I mean, you had Miami and Notre Dame after South Carolina and Virginia Tech played, and, you know, Monday night was kind of a dud because TCU ran all over North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
But that was fun to watch because I think we all wanted to see Bill Belichick fail.
At about halftime, it got a little like. Unfortunately, at halftime, you're like, whew,
Yeah.
But no, week one, you're right. For a person who loves college football, and I posted up in the recliner all day on that really starting on that Thursday night. But even you go back to that Friday night, and you had Georgia Tech and Colorado in a really good game. You had Baylor and you had Auburn in a really good game that was really entertaining to watch. And yeah, you're right. Opening weekend was a whole lot of fun.
Boise and USF on that Thursday.
Yep. I think I kind of mentally fast forwarded to that game because I was actually more interested in North Carolina State, East Carolina.
Sure.
Coming off of the brawl that they had in the bowl game.
Forgot about that.
So I was actually kind of more in tune with that. That ended up being a great game, 24-17, and North Carolina State had to get a stop there at the very end. Week one, and this brings me to my bigger argument, or to a different argument. It's why I don't want to see these non-conference games go away. We talk about these, all right, ACC's going to 9 conference games. SEC's going to 9 conference games. Teams in the ACC have got, a 10th game now already. Clemson's got South Carolina. South Carolina's got Clemson. You look down the line of these future games. I know it wasn't week one, but I love Michigan, Oklahoma. I love seeing Syracuse. Hey, listen, I was ready for Syracuse, Tennessee on that Saturday to see what those teams look like. We need more LSU Clemson games to start the season. We need more Oklahoma Michigan games. We need more Alabama Florida State. That's what college football should be about. That's what we, the fans, deserve. We deserve that. And again, I'll say we deserve South Carolina, Miami. Now, I get why a coach whose paycheck is based on winning and getting to bowl games and doing more might say, no, that's not the game that I want to play, because look at my conference schedule. Look, I already got to play this rivalry game.
Sure.
But we as college football fans, that's what makes it great, and that's what we deserve, and we should get more of those.
Yeah, definitely so. And with the SEC at 9 games, the ACC at 9 games, the Big 12 at 9 games, and all 3 of those conferences are requiring one Power 4 out of conference opponent, I'm hoping that, has enough crossover to where we get good week ones every single year. The Big Ten still doesn't require that, but maybe they'll change their mind on that coming up soon, because, again, we look forward to it the entire offseason. Every single year you have a couple of matchups, in week number 1 at a neutral site or something along those lines, but very rarely do you have something in every single window over the course of an opening weekend like that gives you something to really sink your teeth into. And that's what we got this year, which is what made it, so fun. And I would think with how much influence TV has on the sport right now, and the reason why we have an expanded playoff and all that kind of stuff, that they would be pushing like, hey, let's get more of these matchups to where we can set these record numbers for viewership in week number 1 like you did this year.
Yeah, I'm just glancing. Next year's week 1 should be pretty entertaining. I believe that is set for the 5th, Saturday the 5th. So just looking ahead to next year. Now, they'll move some of these games to a Thursday or a Friday night, and we'll kind of lose that. But right now you're scheduled for Clemson LSU next year. Okay, that game down in LSU. You're scheduled for South Carolina, Miami next year to open the season. You're also scheduled. I had a couple more here that looked pretty enticing, because I don't see. Off of it, I don't. But I feel like I've heard I don't see Texas and Ohio State in a rematch. Colorado, Georgia Tech would be really good next year. Boise State's going to open on September 5th with Oregon next year. There was a couple others in here that I bypassed that again are not like great games. East Carolina, by the way, goes to Alabama. So yeah, we need more of that. That's to me is what makes college football great and fun.
Sure.
Is those games.
Yeah, and look, we know the non-conference games and playing an FCS team, that's always going to be part of it, and there's benefits to those programs specifically on why you play those games, as well as get an opportunity to, get right, play some younger guys, that kind of stuff. So those games are never going to go away, but, I feel like, lessening, because again, like teams like Kentucky go out there and schedule 3 of those every single year. So you've now taken one of those off their schedule, forcing them to, and they already played Louisville, so they'll probably still just use 2 no-name opponents, squeezed in there. But I think it just creates a better schedule across the board, because again, we look at the way things have worked out now, and again, Carolina and Ole Miss, the only 2 that have played 2 conference games so far, but we're getting into the end of September, and like you said, there's a lot of teams we haven't learned a lot about because they haven't played quality opponents, and now we're finally getting some uniformity across all four of these Power Four conferences to where everybody's going to be playing 9 conference games, which extends this in to earlier in the season, so you get more quality football.
Next year, week 2, Ohio State, Texas,
Okay.
Oklahoma, Michigan.
Ooh, yeah, that's good.
So that's just week 2. There's actually week 2 next year for the college football. I hate to look that far ahead. We're still trying to just get through week 5 of this season. But week 2 next year, you got the Ohio State Texas game. You got the Oklahoma Michigan game. You even got a rematch of that Missouri Kansas game that was pretty good. Tennessee's at Georgia Tech. Oklahoma State goes for revenge, I guess, against Oregon, if you will. So Virginia Tech maybe can go for revenge against Old Dominion.
Yeah, maybe so. Whoever's coaching them at that point.
Exactly. Yeah.
John Gruden, who knows?
Yeah, so that's the point. And to that bigger picture, what you were saying about week 1, I agree with you. And then you look at it and what's going on with scheduling, and I hope we preserve these really fun, interesting non-conference games and kind of go from there.
Yep.
803-404-6100. That's how you can weigh in if you want to do so on anything you hear. Come back. We'll get back into last night's announcement of the permanent opponents and discuss that for South Carolina and the rest of the SEC. You're listening to the Halftime Show.
Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave along with you here on your Wednesday on the game. A lot of off-season-y type of news that have come out in the past couple days with coach firings and obviously looking ahead to future schedules in the SEC. Like, again, that's very much like December-y talk, but we're getting it in September for some reason. But regardless, it's interesting to look ahead. And again, Chris Lowe of ESPN spoiled the surprise of who the permanent opponents were going to be earlier on this week in Georgia, Kentucky, and Florida. But now we know, and you can plan ahead. Don't have the dates yet, but plan ahead your ideas at least of where you want to travel over the next 4 years, as we know exactly who South Carolina is going to be playing as far as the SEC goes over the season through 2029.
I think the big thing was discovering, making sure, I guess, if you will, because we thought, all right, we're going to get Georgia back. Listen, I want to go back to something you brought up earlier. We talked about the rivalry. I think South Carolina, Tennessee, really, you look at it this century, had developed into one of the SEC's better rivalries. But when the game was played, it didn't matter as much, if you will.
Sure.
But look at the games and how they're played and how close they were. It helped. You go back to even when Lou Holtz was here, and they were barn burners. They were barn burners again. Steve Spurrier brought some pizzazz to that game with he and Philip Fulmer, and then just his general dislike of Tennessee after that, and the way that was. And they have typically been close games. Now the last two. Our last three, I think, have not been close. They've been blowouts.
Yeah, on one side or the other.
Yeah, they've been either way. But with that all being said, I think maybe that's the one you might have wanted back. Now we get that next year, and Tennessee will come here. And I think you're happy about that. We'll see what Tennessee's probably. He got in on Saturday now, and I'm blanking on his name. The backup quarterback. They've got two of them that are really good, but. And then they've got the kid Brandon Brandon, one of the top recruits in the country, going there also at quarterback.
Yep.
But anyway, you're going to get them here next year, and that's something I think that's fun to look at. Now you can't start planning your road trips.
No,
because you don't know the dates.
You don't know the dates yet,
and you don't. You might have one that's prioritized above the other.
One of the things you can get an idea and say, hey, in 2027, I want to go to Auburn and go to Kentucky or something like that. And you get the idea in your head of having that planned out, well before you know when those dates are going to be and stuff like that. And the good thing about, again, another positive of this is they're doing the rotation where it's not playing the same opponents 2 years in a row. So the opponents you will see in 2026 outside of your three permanents will not be the same ones you see in 2027. Same thing for 28 and 29. So you get something a little bit fresh every single year. And also for those games like Tennessee that you're not going to see every single season, it's not going to be this long wait to see them again, right?
Do you like that, by the way? Do you like
do.
the fact that you're not doing just the home and away back-to-back years, that there's going to be a gap in between those?
I do. It allows you to not get too far away from any of the opponents. That way you're seeing them at least every other year if they're not in your permanent rotation. Because, again, let's think about it. You're playing Tennessee next year. It'll be 3 years since you've seen them. That feels like an eternity.
It does. Georgia as well.
Georgia as well. So as opposed to, all right, well, we don't see them this year, but you'll see them next year type thing. That way, again, it's always in some close proximity to you in terms of, when you see these opponents. So I like that. And, again, like this year's schedule is fine, but there's also a staleness to it because you did see all these same teams last year, and there's nothing fresh and new about the conference slate this year.
Nah, there's not, but it's still fun. Well, you say that nothing. You said there's nothing fresh and new about this year.
As far as like the SEC slate goes, because again, it's all the same teams. You have the appeal of like Oklahoma coming in, which is cool.
It loses its luster because they're going to fire their coach. If Texas was going to Florida, see, I ran through that whole list of games, right?
Mm-hmm.
I honestly can't believe I just did this. I ran through that whole list of games for this weekend. Am I crazy? Is Texas not playing Florida this week?
Is that this weekend?
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's why I flat missed it. But yeah, they're not.
I think they're both on byes.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah. All right. That's next week. All right. That's why I missed it. Okay. All right. But I was going to say that would be new and exciting with Texas going to Florida.
Yeah.
But Florida's not. I don't know what Florida is, but you get the point.
And I was talking about more from the standpoint of, South Carolina's angle of it, of, seeing the same teams you saw last year just flipping home and away. But there are some other intriguing matchups around the SEC that are a little bit fresh. But again, with what they're.
I just want to stop you for a second. All right.
Yeah.
Because this is, I was wrong. Texas, Florida's next week. In what world do we live in where if I said, okay, this week I'm going to let you watch, you get to pick one game, Texas, Florida, or Vanderbilt, Alabama, Tyler, and you're going to choose what?
I'm
And that's next week, by the way, for those one. That's next week. Those are those.
I'm probably going to choose Vanderbilt, Alabama, to be honest with you, because I think that's a more competitive game.
Here's where we are with the SEC, right?
That's funny.
But to see, and that's too. But I think you'd have a little bit of intrigue with stuff like that. But I think you're right when you talk about mixing it up a little bit more. Where, all right, you're going to see for South Carolina fans, you're going to see Tennessee in 2026, but you won't see them again. You won't make that road trip to Neyland until 2028.
Yeah. So, and again, it just allows you to stay close to all these opponents, not being more than a year separated from all of them, and gives you variety every single year, which I think is neat. And again, you're going to have your annuals that you look forward to every single year that, if you don't already consider them to be rivals, can kind of butt into that as the years go by, assuming they stay on the schedule after 2029. But I like the way the SEC has done this. And again, it's a new age college football, and once the money finally got there from TV, they decided it was okay to do.
Yeah, no, the other part to this is what did we lose or what did we gain, excuse me, across the board in terms of, for example, we lose Georgia, Tennessee. To me, I mean, look, I've got no vested interest in that.
Sure.
But just like this past weekend, I know that that's a good game. And when I'm kind of scouting out games coming up for the upcoming season, and just kind of looking, okay, what are these games on this weekend?
Yeah.
That's one of them, but we will lose that now at least for 2 out of the 4 years.
Yeah, so there is something about when you kind of look at the greater schedule of the SEC, some of those games that you do look forward to every single year that may not necessarily be there. But again, it all also has to deal with the perception of the teams as well. And, they're obviously right now Tennessee's in a very good place, but there have been plenty of years where we look at Tennessee games and say, well, I don't need to watch Tennessee-Alabama because Alabama's going to throttle Tennessee. So we don't really know what these teams are going to be over the course of those next couple of years, where even those feelings of games that we might think we're going to be missing might not be that same way when we get there. Who knows?
So give me an opinion. This is off of CBS Sports. This is from Will Backus. He wrote the article on what the SEC missed. We've talked about a few of these. Tennessee, Florida. We agreed on that. But it is what it is. Alabama, LSU. But I don't mind not having that. Florida, LSU.
Yeah, that is, I feel like, one of the more underrated rivalries in the SEC because those two programs do not care for each other. And we just saw them play, the other weekend. And that is an annual matchup that, again, I think flies under the radar a little bit. That, I think I'll miss that one. Now, again, we don't know what Florida is going to be, next year, let alone 4 years from now. But that is always a hardly fought competitive game, as you saw this past weekend or 2 weeks ago now, and especially last year when Billy Napier's team, pulled the upset. So that's a quality game that you're not going to get every single year now.
This one was interesting. This is CBS Sports. This is the fourth game that Will Backus says that they missed. I'm going to read this to you and get your take on it because this is, I think, part of conference play and trying to build maybe some rivalries or some games. And it throws out Arkansas, Oklahoma.
Ooh, okay.
And let me read it. It says here's a bit of a wild card. It says, though Arkansas and Oklahoma are geographically closer to each other than they are to any other school in the SEC, and though they very briefly shared the Southwest Conference, they have played just 15 times since 1899.
Wow.
The last time they saw each other was on the field was in 2001. And it goes on to point out this was an opportunity for the SEC to create something with a benefit of conference expansion, creating a rivalry, revamping scheduling, and given the we talked about proximity, given the relatively close proximity between the two universities and crossover between the fans and the universities, to have something like this game played as opposed to Oklahoma and Mississippi, which they say does not make a lot of sense.
Yeah, no history there, no real ties. And I think for the most part they did a good job with the geography being to account there. But yeah, if those two teams are closer to each other than anybody else in the SEC, that is definitely a missed opportunity.
803-404-6100 though. Overall, we all agree SEC got this one right. So we are looking at that. We'll get back into talking a little South Carolina, Kentucky here as the SEC. We know that game's taking place on Saturday night, and that one's important, but I do enjoy talking about 2-3 years in advance because it's fun to see what the SEC kind of did.
It is. No, and I give them props for the way they did this, and I can't think of a better way to do it.
Back into a little bit of discussion on South Carolina, Kentucky, as well as a few more things in the big picture of college football. You're listening to the Halftime Show.
Tyrod here for the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder, and First Palmetto Bank. If you're looking for a mortgage guru, Jacob Crowder has got you covered. He's helped so many 1075 game listeners and can help you as well. We at the game personally recommend him. Owner operator right here in the Midlands, Jacob has local decision makers, which means quick and precise processing and underwriting. If you're looking to make a move, give Jacob a call at 803-719-1005 or email him at jcrowder@firstpalmetto.com. Interest rates have stabilized as well as the local housing market, and now's a good time to buy a house. Jacob and First Palmetto Bank have products to help home buyers, and if you're considering building a home, they have no-nonsense construction loans that fit your needs. Again, Jacob's number is 803-719-1005, and his MLS number is 198432. First Palmetto Bank is a member of FDIC and an equal housing lender.
2:32 on your Wednesday afternoon. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain David Dare. Again, reminder, tomorrow coming up at 2 o'clock, we will talk with head men's basketball coach Lamont Paris. Quarterzep King himself will give us a phone call, and we'll talk with him about his team. I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see this group coming in this year.
It needs to be a good year. There's no doubt about that. This is definitely a prove-it year for Lamont Paris after the disappointment that last year was.
It is. No, you're 100% right. And that makes it a little, I don't know if scary is the right word, but when you're throwing all these pieces together as he's doing, and they'll get going on Tuesday, November the 4th against North Carolina A&T. Look, that non-conference schedule, it's bad. All right,
yeah.
I'm just going to be point blank on that. Yeah. It's a cupcake schedule. They should roll through that thing. The Butler game, the Northwestern game are at least entertaining. Virginia Tech and Clemson, but the other 8 should be W's.
Unfortunately, we learned very quickly last year that this team was maybe not what we thought it was going to be in Game 1 against North Florida, where they lost to the Ospreys, and it's like, oh, this might be a problem, and obviously ended up being. But again, like you said, with the way the non-conference schedule is set up, and this is the way for a lot of college basketball, you really don't start learning things until the calendar turns. You get into conference play, every single week, and really get into the grind of what your schedule is. So again, you hope they win most of their non-conference games and don't have the same problems they had a year ago, and can hold their own in what might be the toughest SEC ever.
No, we'll get more into that, last year with how difficult the conference was and then what it'll be this year. But that'll be coming up tomorrow at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock tomorrow, Lamont Paris joins us here on the program, and we'll catch up with him and talk a lot more about his team, his excitement for the season. I know he's ready to get going. He's competitive.
Yeah.
So when you say he knows.
He knows. He's well aware that there's a lot of pressure this year, and again, the portal acquisitions didn't maybe work out the way we wanted to last year. Cam Scott didn't blossom the way that we thought he would, and he left and came back, so we'll see what year 2 looks like for him.
Speaking of pressure, do we put pressure on the Big Ten now to go to a 9-game conference schedule? They are now the holdout.
Well, they're in a 9-game conference
Excuse me, I'm
schedule.
sorry.
They just don't have the Power 4 component.
Right, I'm sorry, yeah. What will we make of this now moving? I'm sorry, 9-game conference schedule, but not the extra Power 4 game. And going back real quick, there had been the discussion of the SEC Big Ten, challenge. Please do not do that. But yes.
Yeah. And you say we can't do anything, unfortunately. Right. I think the people that can are the 13 people in that committee, the College Football Playoff Committee, that vote who gets in and who gets left out of the College Football Playoff. And you won't necessarily be able to do that this year because the SEC and the ACC are still finishing up their 8-game conference slates. But if the Big Ten is not decided by next year to adopt the 9-game conference schedule and 1 out-of-conference requirement from a Power 4 conference, then I think that's an opportunity for the College Football Playoff Committee to send a message by saying, hey, let's give another example of an Indiana team that goes 11-1, playing nobody in their non-conference slate. Maybe they get left out as opposed to a 9-3, let's just say South Carolina team that challenged itself in non-conference with teams like Miami and teams like Clemson or something along those lines. That's how you get those kind of things to change, in my opinion.
It's the Indiana's the one challenging this right now, right?
Yes. And Kurt Cignetti's not been shy. He's like, we're not playing anybody. We play in the Big Ten. We don't have to play anybody.
They just bought themselves out of towards the end of the summer?
The Virginia series,
game.
Right.
And that's to me where it's going to get really interesting because let's real quick on this Indiana thing. Let's say they go 10-2, and their losses are to Ohio State and Penn State this year, or I think it's Oregon, and that's their 2 of their. Do you punish them at that point? When you look across the, I know that there's variables. There's variables, and it's going to depend on who else is out there. But a 9-3 SEC team against a 10-2 team like that, whose losses are going to be maybe very good losses.
Yeah, it also depends on how they lose. It also depends on how they lose those games. There's a difference between losing by 30 and losing on last-second field goal. So there are a lot of variables. But again, they're the ones that are not shying away from what they're doing, right? And look, Kentucky kind of does the same thing in the SEC, right? They have the built-in thing with Louisville, so that satisfies their Power 4 conference requirement, and they go out and schedule nobodies to get themselves 3 wins every year and get halfway to bowl eligibility. So it's not just Indiana that does this; other schools do this too. But yeah,
well, the reason we talk about Indiana is because they're legitimate now. All of a sudden,
legitimate.
They now have the Heisman front runner. What they did this weekend is impressive.
And theoretically, let's just say last year, instead of playing, North Southwestern State University in their non-conference slate, let's say they played a Texas or they played an Alabama or somebody and lost that game.
Well, knock it down a little bit. Just say they played a. I mean, because I don't want to. It doesn't have to be top rung.
That's
right?
true. That's true.
It doesn't have to be. Give me a middle tier. All of a sudden, real quick, middle tier. I mean, let's just say they played a South Carolina.
Sure. Let's play this. Let's say they played a South Carolina. Let's say they played, I don't know, Texas Tech from the Big 12 or something like that. Again, not a powerhouse, but a formidable opponent, and they lost that game. Then it's like, okay, well, at least you tried or you challenged yourself. And again, depending on how that game went, that skews your opinion a little bit. But I think it would take that kind of message being sent for the Big Ten to say, okay, we'll change, because they've believed they're the catalyst for all this to begin with, that everybody's following them. I saw when, Cignetti said what he said, and then like 2 weeks later is when the SEC announced, hey, we're going to go to a 9-game conference schedule. And all these people, well, look, Cignetti made the SEC make a change. No, he didn't. This was already on the table. They were just waiting for the College Football Playoff Committee to basically not say that they were going to ding them for having more losses, because guess what? 9 conference games, that means 9 more losses for your teams that could affect your seeding in the playoffs. So they're waiting on that screw to drop before they made any change. It had nothing to do with what Curt Cignetti said.
It starts with the College Football Playoff Committee. That's what it is. So we're going to learn this year. We're going to learn. I think we learned. I think for all the rage and the everything that occurred last year, don't be surprised to see an overcorrection.
Sure.
On this year, and for them to go almost out of their way for strength of schedule and to try and punish somebody. Somebody, in my opinion, will be made an example of for strength of schedule this year, and we're going to be like, well, they should have gotten in, and the committee's going to be like, they didn't play anybody.
Well, and I think
it might be Indiana.
And I think you're already seeing that with the way that the AP poll is voting right now. And again, it shouldn't have a bearing over the college football playoff, but it is used as a reference point for where things get started at. But you're seeing radical jumps with teams that we haven't really seen in years past. Illinois dropped 14 spots for losing to Indiana over the weekend because, they played a quality opponent but were punished for how bad they lost that game. And I feel like that's kind of setting the table for what the playoff committee is going to do with their rankings, where we could see crazy fluctuations week to week based on what your schedule is.
Yeah, and again, my belief is, like you just said, we're going to see an overcorrection now of what they did to kind of set it back. 803-404 6100 is how you can weigh in on that. So that's a little bit of big picture. Back locally here to South Carolina, we've talked a lot about what Shane Beamer had to say yesterday and to get ready, and we'll get more into it tomorrow as we get you set for the football weekend on a Thursday. But, Tyler, again, stopping the run to me is key number one on Saturday night.
Yeah, again, you've struggled to do it in your first 2 conference games, and if you can't do that, then you open up that entire offense for Kentucky, with a quarterback making his first road start in the SEC. That's only going to help him out a little bit. So you have 2 capable backs we talked about a little bit earlier, coming in here that put up some good rushing numbers against Ole Miss, and that's, again, the MO of what Mark Stoops tries to do. So, yeah, that's paramount as far as your defensive game plan goes, of what you have to try and stop with this Kentucky team to try and make them one-dimensional.
We will get a lot more into that tomorrow and Friday in a monster game for South Carolina. But when we come back, we'll wrap up the program and we'll bid farewell. We'll bid farewell to the one and only Mike Gundy when we return. You're listening to The Halftime Show.
All right, welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave, wrapping up the show here on your Wednesday on the game. We've made it through the entire 3 hours, and no coaches have been fired and or retired, so our streak, unfortunately, does come to an end.
2 days.
2 days.
Put the zero back up on the wall.
Put the zero back up on the wall, erase the chalk, and write in the zero. But yesterday, of course, we got the news that Mike Gundy was going to be fired at Oklahoma State, and they had a bizarre press conference last night, if you caught any of that, of, well, I didn't think we were going to do it, and apparently he was offered to finish out the season or wasn't offered, and it was just a weird thing. But regardless, he's no longer the coach at Oklahoma State after a 20-year run there, a lot of success, multiple 10-win seasons, Big 12 championships, all that kind of stuff. Very nearly made the national championship one year.
I believe it was, not as a coach, but I believe 35 years there, too.
That's right. Because he was an assistant under Les Miles when he got the job. He, of course, was the quarterback when he played there. So, and they said it yesterday, he spent over half his life in Stillwater.
And that's kind of the unfortunate thing is, when you have an alumnus and there was so many good things for him, and now it pans out this way.
Sure.
To where basically what it sounds like is they had a conversation with him, and he said, no, I don't feel like doing it that way. And so they instantly called the HR department, like, cut his key card off.
Yeah.
Cut his key card's cut off.
Which, again, his choice was basically, all right, ride out a season for 9 more games knowing I'm going to be fired, or get paid, like $15 million in the next month?
Yeah.
And then go find something else to do? I probably would have taken that second option,
He's going to coach. He says he's going to coach. Well, his brother says he's going to coach again. So
I hope he coaches again, just for the entertainment value alone.
I'm interested to see where he'll go. I wouldn't mind seeing him. I wonder for older coaches like that. SEC Shorts this week did kind of a like a farm where when things kind of go to move on.
Right.
And I wonder if you see older coaches like this who kind of don't want to deal with the stresses of a big time program and they want to coach just a tad longer. If they look at lower level, non-Power 4 FBS teams to go and just be like, hey, I'm going to finish out here. Dan Mullen, I don't know if Dan Mullen's having a blast at UNLV, but.
Or he could go the route of Gus Malzahn and just say, hey, I want to coach ball. I don't want to worry about NIL or portal and stuff like that. Just let me draw up offense, and you handle the rest for whatever head coach that is. I could see Gundy being an OC.
Well, he seems a little too much alpha.
Maybe.
I could be wrong on that, but
Sure.
You're right. He might talk with a couple people and realize, hey, this is a little more fun. He was the second longest tenured FBS coach, 21 years, only behind Kirk Ferentz there up at Iowa. But certainly a situation that this is kind of sad to see, not just because he's a great personality for college football, but because that's his life and that's his alma mater, it's ended poorly. Doug Meacham, by the way, taking over the offensive coordinator, is doing that. But let's hear. If you don't mind, Captain Dave, we've got a little bit of a montage and a farewell to Mike Gundy.
It's a platform for people that are sitting home drawing an unemployment check. How can you not take the trash out when I told you for 2 years, if you walk by the door and there's a bag of trash, take the trash out? I'm a man. I'm 40.
That's my rental for everything.
Oh, it is?
Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40.
Well, that wasn't mine. Yeah. Well, I changed mine last night. I figured if he was going to use my ringtone, then I should certainly use his ringtone. We can be as competitive as anybody in the country on any given day.
We want everybody in the country to know, with all due respect, we got a logo too.
The sides that you get on Thanksgiving, you don't get any time during the year. It started to sink in when I had to get up at 5:45 a.m. and be here before them and prepared for practice. It sunk in real quick. But then when he did it, I said, oh, heck, I got to do it now. So when I got home, of course, I got it. Kristen said it made her kind of throw up in her mouth a little bit. Where are you from?
I'm from Sports Illustrated.
Sweet. I'll be farming. That's what I do. I don't know if I'm any good at it, but I like to do it. I can't just sit by a pool and just look around. And I am a vacuuming full, and I am a bathroom cleaning full. I'm a closet Donkey Kong guy. So Todd and Wild Bill, they gave us a crash course in about a 15-minute period on the 3 defense mechanisms of a rattlesnake. You remember when in Animal House when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
Well, I was in the Germans bombing Pearl Harbor, and one of the young coaches go, Coach, we don't play TCU. I'm like, well, if we played them. I was concerned because it's been so long that I didn't know if I could still do it, but I can still do it.
Never seen anything like it. Past my bedtime.
I double on Ambien. You do them 10 milligrams?
Helps you sleep, huh?
I think so. I don't remember. You walk up next to a 5-foot western diamondback rattlesnake and you're not scared, but you're scared to jump out of a plane. Yeah, I am. And motorcycles scare me.
Just a few of the highlights of the great, and that's not even counting some of the things he said in the past couple of weeks.
Well, some of the controversial stuff I can't remember verbatim, but last year when he was protecting, I think it's Ollie Roberts.
Yeah, about
and
the DUI.
Yeah.
Well, and the opening clip there was his response to fans that were being critical of him last year, saying, it's for people that sit on their couch in their trailers drawing unemployment checks, and that rubs some folks the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's been the great thing about Mike Gundy is we don't have as many of those coaches. I don't know if he was as quirky as Mike Leach, but he had some Mike Leach in him, and we'll see what happens with Gundy. Gundy's not passed away, but we'll see what happens with him. But right now, at least, we're without one of the better voices in college football.
If he does not coach either as a head coach or an OC somewhere, TV or a podcast, right? Like one of those, please. I just need some Gundy-related content on a regular basis.
It feels like Big Noon Kickoff, the Fox channel, and I say that because obviously they've got the Big 12. And it feels like he fits that group. ESPN's already got Pat McAfee. And look, again, let me say this. I've come around, not that I haven't come around. I enjoyed Game Day for the last 25 years, 30 years. I've loved Game Day. Now, unlike, I never understand why people get so upset because I've never watched Game Day to hear Lee Corso break down a football game.
No.
I've never spent 3 hours strictly devoted to staring at College Game Day. It's on in the background. But I enjoy having it, and I do try to make a point of it to catch the very opening bit every morning, on every Saturday morning, because, again, that's kind of my way of starting that Saturday. But I feel like whatever they've done, Nick Saban and McAfee and Reese Davis, and man, by the way, that was emotional. I know we'll just go ahead and knock that one out.
Yeah.
The Corso stuff was emotional, and the video, the tribute show that they did to him on those Friday night, and he was a different kind of college football guy that was fun to watch. But again, I didn't watch him to hear him break down X's and O's. Gundy can probably do somewhat of both. A little bit of both,
yeah, a good mix there, and I definitely think that could be the lane he could find his way in on one of those pregame shows or something along those lines. I just hope he's somewhere in the space where we can continue to enjoy him.
Yeah, let him wander away from a little bit. Yeah. I've forgotten his affinity to go out for these rattlesnakes.
Yes,
I'd forgotten about that.
Yes. So,
boy. Well, as Tyler said, we've made it. Bruce Pearl retired on Monday. Mike Gundy fired on Tuesday. Nobody, as far as we know, has been relieved of their duties or stepped away today. So
there's always tomorrow.
Both of us, we're still here. Captain Dave's still here. We'll come back and we'll do it all tomorrow. How about that?
Sounds good.
For Captain David Dare, for Tyler Head, I'm Bill Gunner. You've been listening to the Wednesday afternoon edition of The Halftime Show.
Tyrod here for our friends over at Pro Swing Columbia. They got 2 locations, one in Forest Acres and one in Chapin. I've been telling you about it the past couple weeks. They've got their fall league coming up starting in just a matter of days. The first week kicks off September 29th through October 3rd, and they want you to be a part of it. Anytime or dedicated league nights with advanced booking required taking place. They also have flighted play for a level playing field as well. Don't wait. Registration closing very soon. You don't want to be left out of this fall. If you want to take part, give them a call at 803-528-1617 to be a part of that fall league. But even if you're not a part of it, you can always go by there and hang out and play on those golf zone simulators. They also have free 30-minute swing evaluations as well. If you want to check any of this out, get more information online at ProSwingColumbia.com for our friends at Pro Swing out at Forest Acres and in Chapin.